Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I remember when I was a kid, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, somewhere in there, really kind of pre-organized sports, or the organized sports weren't going year round. Now this is back in a time when you didn't have the internet, you didn't have something on 500 different channels. You went out and you played. And one of the things we did was, we would have pick up baseball games, kickball games, soccer, touch football. It depended upon who was there, who had what ball, what season it was, where we were at, so on and so forth. You get the gist. If maybe you don't, but it just kind of ebbed and flowed with the time of the year. I grew up in hockey country with there's snow on the ground. Then we usually kicked a puck around as opposed to a soccer ball. But at any rate, I remember there was a situation where you're picking teams, right? You have two team captains, they flip a coin, and then they get to select amongst the players who remain. And I wasn't one of the team captains. It was somebody else who was team captain. I got selected on their team. I'm not sure when, doesn't matter. I wasn't last. I probably wasn't first. But as it was getting down towards the last, there were let's just make it simple. There were two people left. And one was my team captain's friend. And then there was another kid who was not necessarily well-liked, not disliked, but a better athlete than my team captain's friend. You know what? If you're doing something for the betterment of the team, you're going with the better player. He went with his friend. And I don't know. I don't want to say we got killed because of that or we lost because of that. To be honest, I can't remember the outcome. But to me, it was perplexing because he didn't choose the obvious choice. Peer pressure took hold, and he chose his friend. That is what's referred to as cognitive dissonance. It's just a feeling of discomfort when we have a strongly held belief and it conflicts with other information, or it might be new information that we have. Again, my friend has got he's got a friendship, and that's going to last longer than his pickup game. But he also has got a competitive spirit and he wants to win. So he's kind of torn between, okay, what do I do? Which way do I go on this? And the reason I wanted to bring up this topic and talk about this topic is because we all face this in networking. We face this with respect to our relationships out there. You go into somebody, we've probably all been there. You go to somebody and you have the best product, the best price, the best everything, and they don't go with you. Why? Well, it might be that they have a good friend that they're continuing to have their business with. I mean, I run into that. I do that. I've done it for years, and I don't know if there's anything wrong with it, but I do know in those instances, I feel a conflict. It's like, I know I could do a little better, but I've got this friendship. And I'm not saying any of this is bad, but it's something to be aware of as we're dealing with people, right? We wrestle with the notion that you need to raise prices to be profitable, but yet you keep your prices low because you're afraid of losing customers. There's that anxiety that the pricing model is not sustainable, but you fear the change that's going to come with it. And along the same lines, you're making decisions, hiring decisions. You say, well, we need to make them on merit, but then you're hanging on to somebody who is a family member or a friend, or just kind of the longtime incumbent who's not performing, and we're torn. And it's not that there's a right or a wrong to it. It's just you have to be aware that it's there. Certainly be aware that it's there with respect to you, but be aware that it's there with respect to other people. And they may not choose you because of something else that's there. And you might not know what that something else is, right? When I don't feel I have an obligation to tell somebody who's offered me a product and a price that is somewhat better. I mean, if it's substantially better, I'm going to go to my contact and say, hey, what's the deal? I'm not expecting you to match this, but what's the deal? You're not even in the same league. Explain to me what the difference is. And I have done that, but we need to understand that sometimes people in our lives are torn between what they believe and what they're going to do. And it's their decision. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe when you start getting into things that are related to discriminatory actions, things like that, I get it. Okay, that's a whole nother argument. I'm just talking everyday sorts of decisions, right? Um, you know, we believe that authenticity is important, but then we tend to use pushy or misleading marketing tactics to keep up with competitors. I don't want to do it, but I really believe in authenticity and honesty and all that stuff. But if I'm going to close this deal, I'm going to have to fudge a little bit with who we are and what we do, or what we can do. Maybe in that situation, there's, it's a lack of authenticity. Maybe that is wrong. But we struggle with those sorts of things. It's like if I don't get this client, I'm going to, my business is going to be impaired. People will talk about, family comes first and personal lives and balance, and yet then they work 80 hours a week and they'll miss family events or things with friends because they're working. So we run into these conflicts all the time. It's just a part of life that we're going to run into these conflicts. And you know it in your heart of hearts. You may experience one today, or I had one last week, or we'll experience one this week. And you'll just have to deal with it. And again, in most instances, it's not a right or a wrong. You're just making a decision. My friend made a decision. He wanted his friend on his team. If he lost, so what? His friend was on his team. He didn't want his friend to be the last one picked. Okay, maybe it hurt the team. There's no money on the game. There was no league. It was a pickup game. So it's okay. Even if there was, it's his decision. But the point to all of this is that people run into conflicts with respect to the things they do. And it certainly is you, but it's also the people you deal with. And so you have to be somewhat understanding of the people in your sphere, your relationships, your networking partners, that they might do something. They might do something that is totally inexplicable. Why would you do that? I have the best whatever. Why would you go with that? I see this in the AmSpirit world. People are out there. They know they need to be networking. They realize networking is valuable, but they don't. They might not join AmSpirit, or they might not network at all, or even people in AmSpirit. They know they need to get out there and do things, but yet they don't go to chamber functions. They don't, have one-on-one lunches with people. It's like, yeah, I know I need to network, but you know what? Let me just keep making sales, and when I'm comfortable with the amount of sales I'm making, then I'll do more of that. And they may never be comfortable with the amount of sales. They just might not be, and it never happens. It's but in their heart of hearts, they know that referrals are the key to growth, but they struggle to act on that knowledge because they're locked into these behaviors that are in conflict with what they truly believe. And so when you run into these situations, when you're on the short end of somebody, when you're the last one picked and you're clearly the better player, going back to my original analogy, don't be upset with the person who didn't pick you. Understand that they had a conflict they had to deal with. Sure, you can be disappointed. In that situation, you can play like hell and make them regret their decision. But understand that you have conflicts. You have conflicts between what you believe and what you're deciding to do. And that's okay. But other people can be afforded that same sort of conflict, if you will. They can act on have that same sort of cognitive dissonance, if you will. Don't be mad about it. You just kind of have to accept it. Just know that, work harder the next time. Sometimes you're going to be on the winning end of those decisions, and you're going to be on the losing end. You have to continue to get after it, and it's really nothing personal that your personal relationship or your professional relationship is done. People are going to get promotions over you for these things. People are going to get hired over you. People are going to get selected over you. You know what? It's part of life. We're logical and we're illogical. As I tell people, we're reliably unreliable. You're not adding 2 + 2, which always equals 4. The calculus to human behavior is so much more complicated, and you can't let it get you down.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.